Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters. My name is Quebert Garon. Most of you know me as Kobe. And today I want to take a look at 3 different NFL All-Day accounts. These are 3 separate strategies when it comes to collecting moments on NFL All-Day platform. All 3 individuals are people I know. One, of course, is myself. Another is my wife. And the third is Manny, who you may have seen on a previous video. We've got 3 different strategies when it comes to collecting NFL All-Day. And I want to examine them using the Moment Ranks platform on the internet to give you a better idea of what each strategy is about and how it actually pans out in terms of value. Let's get into it. I'm going to begin with Manny's account. Now, Manny is Manny B on the NFL All Day platform, and like I said, we're on Moment Ranks. And the first thing that stands out to me is the difference between the lowest listing value of his moments versus the Moment Ranks value, which is what his moments are actually worth when you factor in the serial numbers. And like we had mentioned on a previous video, Manny's strategy is to get as many low serial numbers as possible because he sees the additional value and collector value because of that as an asset later on when things start to really open up on the platform. He's got 66 moments out of that $1,718 of value that he's accrued while collecting on NFL All Day. Now, we'll just look at the top few here. These are his most valuable moments. That's generally how Moment Ranks ranks things. They put it in order of value. His 2 highest moments are Russell Wilson and Deontay Johnson. And what you'll notice here is that the lowest ask is the same as the Moment Rank value. And that's because he cracked these in packs. Okay, he opened these up in packs. These are a couple of the 2 best hits he's had thus far. And because of that, he had no control over what the serial number was, and as a result, the serial numbers are nothing special here, right? So the lowest ask is the same as his Moment Rank value. But then you get to Bradley Chubb, who he specifically bought himself, and you'll notice here that the lowest ask is $60 versus his Moment Rank value, which is $193 because he's got a two-digit serial, right? He's got number 20 of 999. So that significantly affects the value. It's the same case when you look at Cortland Sutton, another one that he purchased, right? It's another 2-digit serial. Lowest ask is 95. His value, 163. So these really affect the overall value of his collection because of how low those serial numbers are. Now, that isn't always the case. To give you an example, we've got a couple of 3-digit serials out of high mint counts here. So we've got Justin Jefferson. He's got a 3-digit serial out of 10,000, and the lowest ask is 50, and his Moment Rank value is 50. It's the same, even though he has a 3-digit serial. Now, this will change over time, I guarantee you. Eventually, people will start valuing 3-digit serials more than 4-digit serials, and as a result of that, he may be able to take a bit of a profit on this later on. Same thing goes with Davis Mills. Davis Mills, again, lowest ask 39, his value 40, only $1 difference, and again, it's a 3-digit serial, minted to 8,000. So I would expect that to eventually increase in value versus the lowest ask at some point as well. And something you need to understand is that all 3 of us in this situation are basically holding our moments. None of us are really selling away here. There might be the occasional moment where we decide to sell something. If one particular moment goes crazy, say like it did with the Russell Wilson trade, maybe then we sell one if we have an extra. But otherwise, we're all in the process of holding our moments at least until next season starts. I personally believe that September will start to kick off the value in these. It'll start to go up from there. And then probably by mid-season, you'll see a very significant peak of values on all these NFL All-Day moments. I would expect by then they have a lot of utility involved. There's a lot more attention on the product itself, and there'll be a lot more users. So that is, to me, the time to maybe sell if you're looking to turn a profit at some point. Now, when we scroll down, you're going to see a lot of Bills players actually in his collection because he is a Buffalo Bills fan. So it's some of the first players he went out and got were Buffalo Bills. So you'll see a number of them. Plus, he's got a number of Broncos because of the Russell Wilson trade, right? Both him and I decided to just stack up on as many Broncos receivers as we could. And there's a few other key players you're going to see in here because they're going to have fantasy and collectible relevance. But then a lot of his collection is just going to have some odds and ends that you may not know. You may not know AJ Moore Jr., right? This may not be a familiar name to you. You may not know Jerick McKinnon, right? Not every fan's going to know Jerick McKinnon. unless you're a Bills fan, you may not know Devin Singletary, right? So you're going to see a lot of these sort of oddities that are in here. Not everybody knows Jimmy Ward, although he is a bona fide, decent player, right? Bobby McCain, most people aren't going to know who that is. Cyril Grayson, Little Jordan Humphrey. We actually had Cyril Grayson on our Pro Sports Podcasters podcast. It was actually a pretty cool interview, so if you want to check that out, check out the Pro Sports Podcasters podcast on whatever podcast platform you use. We're on all of them, and look up the Cyril Grayson interview. Right? Scotty Miller, I mean, he was only somewhat of a well-known name because Tom Brady liked to throw to him. Riley Dixon, Charles Harris, Josh Reynolds, like these, Camu Grugier-Hill, again, I think will be good for fantasy, but whatever. DJ Reader, Foster Moreau, Blake Lynch, like most people, Sam Hubbard, you're not going to know who these guys are. Okay, so he has a very top-heavy collection. The best players he has in moments, he has some of the best serials he could get, and that's what he's after. So that's the way Manny's collection works. And one last look, it's important to note, okay? His value is 1,718 out of 66 moments. Keep this in mind because it's going to play a significant role when looking at the other accounts we'll be looking at today. Now let's move on to my account. So here we are with my account. It's PSP Kobe. And the first thing you'll notice is the numbers are completely different when it comes to comparing them to Manny's. First of all, I got 153 moments in comparison to his 66. And I'm only a couple $100 higher in value. What you'll also see here is that my moment ranks value is actually $1 less than the lowest listing value. And you may wonder how that can happen. The reason that happens is because occasionally I will snipe a moment so low that the lowest listing value doesn't account for how low I paid for a specific moment if the highest serial currently for sale is lower than the one I purchased. And that's how that can work out. So obviously I'm looking for the cheapest price possible. Now, when you scroll down and start looking at my account, it doesn't begin as high as Manny's. My highest value moment is a Joe Hayden, which I actually cracked, right? And again, you're going to see a lot of these very similar numbers between the lowest ask and the moment rank value. Now, something Moment Ranks does not account for, I've noticed this, is that it does not account for interesting numbers, okay? Interesting serials. For instance, I've got a Cortland Sutton number 666. So if you're a fan of horror films or a big fan of Iron Maiden, you'll know the significance of the 666. And generally speaking, this will actually fetch more on the marketplace than lowest value, but Moment Ranks does not factor that in. If you've got a 666, or a 888. I mean, if you're into numerology, you'll understand the 888. It's also, I mean, I love 888s because 8's my favorite number, but it does not take that into account. So even though it's 666, because it's a high serial in comparison to the mint run, it has it equal to the lowest value. So that's something that Moment Ranks will not factor in, but it's still something that you may want to target if you get the opportunity for a good cost. You continue down, and what you're going to see with my moments is, yes, I'm going to have some of the key players. I mean, you look at the top here, Joe Hayden, Cortland Sutton, Aaron Donald, Russell Wilson. My collection will span both the top defensive and top offensive players. Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard, Justin Jefferson, Anthony Barr. I mean, Jakeem Grant, no big deal because I cracked him, but Shaquille Barrett, Javonte Williams, Josh Allen, TJ Watt, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Joe Burrow, Stafford, Hurts, and Ambry Thomas was part of a collection I went after, TJ Watt. So you're going to see a lot of the best players both sides of the ball. But then when you start floating through here and get past some of the better ones, you're also going to come across a few players that, again, maybe you have no clue about. Let's actually jump ahead to, say, page 3 here because I have so many. So not everyone is going to know Akeem Hicks, although he's a great defensive player, right? Not everyone's going to know Tyus Bowser, but again, great defensive player. Denzel Perriman, same thing, right? You got some offensive players that people aren't going to really know. Chris Conley, Keelan Cole, but these are players that currently play a significant role on shitty offenses that will be chasing quite often. So the wide receivers on those teams are going to have to catch a lot of balls eventually. Maybe not for touchdowns, but if there's a challenge that has to do with the number of catches maybe, or even yards, then they could actually factor in. And that's the point of my collection. My collection is built to handle pretty much any challenge. And that's why the number of moments that I have is so important, right? It's why 153 moments, even though it's only $200 more than Manny's current account with only 66 moments, he'll make his money by selling individual moments at the highest price. I'll make my money by basically completing every challenge available to me. So that's how these two accounts differ. I'm inside the top 6%. He's just outside the top 6%. So as far as value goes, it's very similar when it comes to how they rank us overall on the platform. But I could give a damn where I rank. All I care about is that I have basically every player available that could factor into any kind of challenge, whether it be offensive or defensive. Now let's get on to my wife's account. Now we're on to my wife's account, and it's at Amy PSP. And what you'll see here is that she does have a slight discrepancy between the lowest listing value and her moment ranks value. It's a little bit higher, so she does have some decent serials amongst her collection. But what her collection is about really is she's a fan of the sport. Okay, she's just a true fan. So she wants those players that really stand out on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. But let's be honest, generally speaking, the offensive players get all the hype. So her collection is very offensive player heavy. Now, when you look at her collection, it's just awesome to look at. To be entirely honest with you, it reads like a fantasy football roster when it comes right down to it. So right off the top here, her most valuable moment is actually Cam Sims, but that's because she cracked him in a pack. But then we've got Joe Burrow, Mike Evans, Aaron Donald, Russell Wilson, Justin Simmons, Mike Williams, Tannehill, which she cracked in a pack, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Kyle Pitts, Alvin Kamara, Jerry Jeudy, Dak Prescott, Michael Pittman Jr., Najee Harris, like Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller, Chubba Hubbard, she cracked, Nick Chubb, Julio Jones, DeAndre Swift, Deebo Samuel, Chase Claypool. Like, it's just ridiculous, right? You can just keep going, and it's basically studs all the way down the line. I get on to her second page, and it's going to be some of the same. Cameron Sutton, she cracked. We got Marvin Jones Jr., David Njoku, J.C. Jackson, Brandon Ayuk, Brian Burns, Kenny Golladay, Deontay Johnson, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, Jarvis Landry, Richard Sherman, Stephon Diggs. Like, it's stacked, right? It's absolutely stacked. So for the average football fan, you look at her collection and you're like, wow, you've got some great moments. Now, she'll be in on some of the offensive challenges, right? If it's anything to do with wide receivers, she's going to be in on it. She's got the majority of the top wide receivers in the league by far, right? She basically has them. You know, unless all this available is a legendary or they haven't even had a moment minted yet, she's basically got the wide receivers. She's got some of the best quarterbacks. She's got some of the best running backs. And then the few defensive players she has are really the best at their position. So she would factor in on maybe a sacks challenge because of who she's got in her collection. And that's the three different types of collections we've got here. We've got Manny, who's after the low serial numbers, the highest value individual moments he can get. Then you've got myself, who just wants a massive collection of anything that could be relevant when it comes to challenges down the line. And then you got my wife, who basically has a fantasy football roster of fandom when it comes right down to it. She's just a fan, and the majority of the moments in her collection are recognizable. All three collections have an opportunity of doing well down the line. Which one do you think will do best? Let us know in the comments. Just comment with whether it's Manny, Cobe, or Amy as to who you think is actually going to make out like a bandit come next season and who eventually will earn the most long run. Let us know. Till next time, have fun on NFL all day, and whatever else sports, NFTs, information you want, we've got it here with the Pro Sports Podcasters. They have announced the next release for UFC Strike, their first Series 1's moments, but it kind of bothers me that they haven't really had any utility before doing so, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be in on that or not. I'll let you know closer to the date. Till then.